All right, fellas, new Late Night Lake Show. Let's get it. We got a lot to get into, man. The last time that we spoke to the congregation was post All-Star break for our house party episode. Obviously, a lot has happened since that day. Babies have been born, houses have been bought, Kwame's hair has grown. It's been just busy times all the way around. But we're happy to be back rolling with the folks. I know they're watching on YouTube. I know they're listening on the podcast. So we just not gonna waste no time. It is craziness here in Lakerland. Obviously, we are 123 Cancun. It is snowing in Chicago, but it's still, I'm on vacation until August. So unfortunately, the Lakers did not qualify for the playoffs, did not qualify for the play-in, and fired their head coach, Frank Vogel. The exit interviews ended up being very, very informative all the way around for what the actual behind-the-scenes temperature was like with our Los Angeles Lakers over the course of the season. I don't think there's any other better place to start than how the Lakers started this last season, which was the Russell Westbrook trade. Lakers brought him in, had this season from hell, and now we're sitting with postseason comments by Mr. Russell's Brussels about how he wasn't allowed to be him. So, Kwame, can you just help enlighten me on what the hell that even means on Russ not being allowed to be Russ? Because he just straight up disagreed with AD and LeBron and as far as how they were not on the same page this season.
I'm not trying to hear that, man. I'll be honest, I'm really not trying to hear none of that. I feel like he had every opportunity and then some to be himself, prove himself, whatever it may be. And that's probably my biggest gripe with a lot of his exit interview comments is just that I felt like there wasn't enough accountability. Just wasn't. And, there was a lot that he needed to do himself that he completely, blatantly ignored. And again, he did a lot of finger pointing. People talked about his experience in LA, talked about the fans and how the welcome wasn't warm and it wasn't embraceful, all that stuff. Talked about the coach, said Frank has something against him. He's not sure what his issue is. When they talked about, LeBron and AD kept harping on, hey, let Russ be Russ. He's like, that really wasn't how it was. Like, I think we can all agree there. I didn't like how the attitude and the approach he took for a dude that basically had a nightmare season and is probably the biggest component to that season being a nightmare. And he took no accountability for it. I mean, I guess when it was all said and done, he missed maybe like 3 or 4 games in totality. But before we were completely eliminated from playoff contention, he'd only missed 1 game. He had plenty of time to prove himself on the court. It was either just him and AD, him and Bron, or him by his damn self. And we did not get the vintage Russell Westbrook performances that we'd hoped for. I think we got that one against the Spurs pretty early on in the season, and I can't really remember another where I was like, that is the Russ we need every single game. Every game felt underwhelming. I don't know what he wants. The guy had the ball in his hands. I know the Russ stands will attack and say he was just standing in the corner. He really wasn't as much as y'all think. You look at the usage rate, you look at the film, he had the ball plenty of time. He wasn't doing nothing with it. I know it's easy to create a low light reel of anybody, but his are hilarious. The off the backboard shots, him just throwing the ball to the other team, just giving it away, dribbling off his foot. I find it really hard for him to say he never had an opportunity to prove himself or let himself be himself. There was too many with the inconsistencies in our lineup. Just by that metric alone, he should have had many opportunities to just play his game. I'm not trying to hear all that. You were benched for reasons because you weren't producing in the fourth quarter. Why he even started the whole season is beyond me. His impact on the court wasn't effective, and I think that's very clear from anybody who watched any Lakers games. His impact wasn't there. His numbers weren't even great, but Russ fans will quickly go back to the numbers. I get it. But he didn't play well, and I think that's just the easiest way to say it. And I wish he would have just been more accountable there, but it was very apparent that this isn't gonna. We're not getting another year of this. The way I felt like he lit a match on every bridge before he decided to step out on Russ Island by himself. He burned everything down. Even the comments like, if I'm Anthony Davis and LeBron, I'm not listening to this dude and be like, yeah, I'd love to play with that again. But yeah, fuck that. We're not doing this again. And again, he at what point did he ever praise anybody in helping his acclimation to LA? He didn't do any of that. It was just all finger pointing and saying he was given a raw deal. So I'm good on Russ. I was not a fan of that exit interview. It was just mind boggling how somebody can be that unaware of himself. He reminds me of another former Laker and, like Montrezl Harrell and just having this complete, different view of himself versus what he actually does on the court. And Russ, he's going to have a humbling moment in the next offseason when his contract runs out. And, he's not, I don't think he's a starting point guard in this league. That's just me. I think of every team. I can't think of a team that their point guard, they would rather have Russ instead of their current point guard. So I think he's going to have a humbling in the next 2 seasons. If he doesn't, he's going to find it real hard to get some ground here. We saw Melo go through the same thing. I think Russ is in that component too, but I'm good on Russ.
It's called him Gucci. Omar, I mean, the ball Russ talked about, this is not completely up to him if he's coming back. Well, step one is a $47 million decision that I think we all can agree Russ is going to exercise that for no other reason besides what Kwame just said. If Russ decides that he wants to dip back into the free agency pool, I don't think he's going to like how those waters feel. But you flip it over to the other side, he's going to opt in. Do you see any scenario on this planet after those comments that Russ is suiting up in a Lakers uniform heading into next season?
I can't. I mean, I agree with everything you said, Kwame. Like he didn't even want to work with Phil Handy, like one of the best developmental coaches in the entire league, who's worked with Kobe, Kyrie, LeBron, like the list goes on and on. And he just, like, he's so in a tunnel vision where like it's his way or the highway, and like no one will be able to like impact or affect his decision making, whether it's on the court or clearly off the court, because of this exit interview, which kind of went like, the quotes were like gold mines on Twitter. Everyone was going crazy from all the quotes that were coming out of the interview. But there's no way I can see him coming back to the Lake Show. So he'll be on a bottom feeding team, maybe the Magic, maybe some scenarios we're going to get into in a bit in the next segment, but I can't see him anywhere as a starting point guard because he can't shoot the ball. He can't finish anymore. Like, I don't know. We were talking about it earlier in the season. Are his hands too small? I think that's it, right? He can't finish the layups anymore because he used to be able to dunk those balls. So I just can't see it in any situation or scenario.
Well, we can only pray that those hopes and dreams come true. And honestly, like after Russ's exit interview and honestly his demeanor the entire season, I think he's probably off the whole hell, you ask him about it, it wasn't necessarily any glitz or glamour or dream come true coming to the Lakers, completely contradicting what he said earlier when he first got signed by the team. Now it's not as big of a deal to Russ of the team that he's suiting up for. I think the only thing that's been consistent in what he's been saying is he is surrounded by his family now, and that is the most important thing to him. But I think overall what we saw this year was the inflection point that I think a decent amount of superstars hit, but often we see make the wrong decisions when the star is no longer the star but still getting paid like one, right? How can they mentally shift from I am going to continue to be me and it's going to work and I just need the situation where it's going to work, versus I need to start adjusting my game because I'm getting a little bit older or I'm getting a little bit more banged up or whatever the reason is. But to separate yourself from one, who you were, and then two, what your salary says you are, to what you are actually today, I recognize that's hard. But every step of the way, Russ made it harder. And this exit interview really kind of just proved that when he looked in the mirror, he still sees Russell Westbrook, the superstar. I think when the rest of the world watches him play, they see a man that is no longer in connection with reality when it comes to his basketball ability. Those are just facts. I honestly, as these years go on, I commend Melo more and more for how he persevered, stuck with it, had his bumps in the road, coming off that mountain, right? But to still be in the league and to be able to contribute. Melo is a contributing basketball player in this league today, and he's from LeBron's draft class, right? I worry that Russell Westbrook is going to not like what the world is outside of this tenure with the Lakers. Could I see him going back to Oklahoma City and, doing whatever the hell he needs to do? Sure. Yeah, I think that's probably the best situation for him because the team's not going anywhere. They just want to collect draft capital and maybe bring up that young nucleus of players. Fine. Russ, elder statesman, go do that. Could I see them rotting in Sacramento and them thinking that they can shine up this Russell Westbrook career and have a revitalizing tour? Sure. That's just how the organization operates. But I think as far as a Lakers standpoint, there is a big decision to make as far as, are we going to trade Russ, or are we going to trade Russ and bring back some actually contributing basketball players on the court next season? That's really what we're looking at. And we are starting to hear about two teams that kind of check those boxes for different reasons. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to get into the Russell Westbrook trade packages. Don't act like they don't exist, folks. We got plenty. We've made 90 million deals already on Lakers Twitter. One of them got a hit, goddammit. Late Night Lake Show. We'll be right back.
The Late Night Lake Show podcast is sponsored by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best legal way to play daily fantasy player props in states like California, New York, Texas, and more. You pick 2 to 5 players and an over-under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. The best part is you can mix players from different sports. You could take the over on LeBron combined with the under on Mahomes in the same entry. Prize Picks is the easiest way to play daily fantasy because it's just you versus the projected numbers. Just use our promo code LNLS, and any deposit you make can receive 100% instant deposit match up to $100. So go support the brand and go win you some money. It's the best of both worlds. Again, use our promo code LNLS.